Welcome to the American Med Spa Association podcast, Medical Spa Insider. This week, AmSpa founder Alex Thiersch is speaking with Randi Boyette, PhD, CEO of Spark Medical Marketing, and Corporate Development Advisor for AmSpa.
Okay, everybody, welcome. Thanks for joining us. This is Alex Thiersch, and you are listening, as you heard, to Medical Spa Insider. And we are very, very excited and pleased to have on the AmSpa hotline. First of all, for those of you watching on YouTube, check out the background. It's amazing. I wish I could say I was responsible for it myself, but I'm definitely not. I have Randi Boyette, who is on the line with us right now, to thank for that. Dr. Randi Boyette, I should say. And Randi has been good enough to agree to help AmSpa out in helping us grow and to reach more people. And so we've made that announcement, and many of you may have seen it, that she has joined us as a strategic growth advisor, is what we're formally calling her. But you know, the main thing to know is that she is someone that we have a ton of respect on, and she's been in the business for a long time, and very excited to bring her onto the team and to have her helping us grow everything AmSpa. So very happy to have you. Randi, how are you? Thanks for joining.
Thank you so much for having me on today. Excited to be part of the podcast. And yes, the backgrounds look great. So excited.
I mean, slick. I almost feel like uncomfortable. It's so nice. Like it's really maybe washing me out a little bit though. I need to like go tanning, but
put you into a makeup trailer before next.
I'm gonna need hair and makeup. I do. I need a lot of help. That's no question. So Randi, first of all, you know, a lot of folks obviously may have heard of you, may have not heard of you. I'd love to just kind of introduce you to our crowd. There's a lot of people who listen to this podcast who are either in the medical aesthetics industry, or they're looking to get into the industry, or they do various things within the industry. And you know, you've got a lot of chops, and your background is very, very impressive. So let's get into that a little bit so folks can get to know you, and then we'll go from there. So let's just, you know, what's the 30-second snapshot of Randi for everyone to know?
Sure. Well, the last 12 years of my career has been all aesthetics, you know, from starting Spark, which grew from one employee to hundreds of employees. And it was a fantastic experience, serving thousands of clinics across the country and even out of the country, right? So that became, you know, a great thing to be in charge of. And then really realizing our capabilities in this industry and stretching in every direction possible, and getting to meet so many amazing people over the years, and becoming, you know, just kind of the voice of this industry because of all of those offices that we touched every day. Because I was employee zero, you know, the fact that I did every role, from onboarding new customers to learning how to run digital marketing campaigns. I did everything in the beginning, right? And until then growing into a large company and being traditional CEO. But, you know, the part that's been the best, you know, for me, was watching it flourish into this large company, growing a technology piece that allowed us to have a partnership / acquisition last year with a tech company. And that has allowed me to, I don't want to say step away, because I'm still very connected to Spark, but step away in a way that I'm not in the day-to-day operations anymore. And even though I'm still connected to Spark, I can now step into roles that I have a lot of passion about, like working with AmSpa. This is a dream for me, you know, working with an organization like yours that raises the bar for our industry and sets the standards and helps to work on compliance. I think that's something that in our industry has sort of gotten away from us in certain states and certain areas. And so I've always been passionate about doing the right thing. So it's really exciting to me to be a part of that. So, but
thank you so much. That's awesome.
Yeah. So right now I'm just stretching in many directions wherever, you know, I feel like somebody could use my help, or, you know, making connections such as yourself.
So I actually want to back up even further. So Spark medical marketing is it Spark Medical Marketing or Spark Digital Marketing? Sorry.
Yeah, Spark Medical Marketing.
Spark Medical Marketing is a kind of a full service marketing agency, digital marketing for medical aesthetics and others. It's become this giant company, which is cool to see. I would love to take even a step further back because what we do in a lot in this podcast is talk about, kind of your journey, how you got to where you were. So, what were you doing before then? And more to the point, what was the impetus and the drive behind you saying, you know what, I'm going to start my own marketing company? Because that's, there's so many marketing companies out there. It is such a competitive space now. I mean, especially, but I'm sure back then it was as well. What was that like? And then I would love to dive into that a little bit, because that's such an interesting thing that you did.
Sure. So, the 5-minute recap on that is I graduated college and got into sales right away.
Mm-hmm.
Sales is my natural setting. And so I was in corporate sales of, believe it or not, and I'm definitely going to age myself, but I own my age, but I was selling pagers. So this is even before we had cell phones. So
yeah, you're going to have to, I mean, for those of you listening who don't know what that is, use Wikipedia or whatever it is. Pagers were a thing back in the day. And it was usually drug dealers and medical professionals.
So when I graduated college, pagers were all the rage, but I was in corporate sales. So going into a company like, say, AT&T and selling them like 2,000 pagers for their sales force, right? And I was their number one salesperson, and I was doing really well, right out of college, making this 6-figure income. But I didn't like what I was doing at all. I was very bored, and pagers just weren't floating my boat. And my whole life, I had this dream of being in the beauty industry, right? Like I wanted to be in that industry. So I was about 18 months into that job, and I did something very what my parents thought was crazy and almost disowned me. I quit my job, and because I wanted to be in the beauty industry, and I wanted to work for one of the big beauty companies, like the Christian Dior's, the Estee Lauders. I wanted to be in one of those companies. So I quit my 6-figure job, and I decided to go work behind the makeup counter at one of the department stores, because in those companies, you have to start behind the counter. They don't hire you at the high level. So I went from making over 6 figures at, 23 years old to making $8.50 an hour selling mascara and lipstick behind the counter. And my parents thought I was nuts. I graduated number 2 in my class at college, and they were like, "What are you doing with yourself?" But I was like, I have a plan. I swear I have a plan. And I actually loved doing it, but I did have a plan, and I made sure every time the executives came in, I made sure to introduce myself. And within a year, I started climbing the ladder in the beauty industry, and worked for a few different companies along the way, like MAC and Lancome and Chanel, in different various positions, but settled into Christian Dior and helped them grow the J'adore brand. So that was really my claim to fame. I helped spearhead that entire brand for J'adore, and it was an amazing piece of my career.
That's all. But before you go on, I want to back up a little bit. When you first of all, starting working behind the counter, I can see where your parents were like, "What the hell is she doing?" But knowing the industry as you did, obviously that was a great start. What was and you said that when executives come in, you would make sure to introduce them. How did you? Because there's other folks out there right now who say, "I would love to start somewhere," but they think potentially starting and working behind the counter, you're maybe pigeonholing yourself into something. What do you do to actually move up? It can't just be, okay, you're going to be great at your job. That's part of it. You have to be good, but you also have to put yourself out there and try to grab those opportunities. How did you ultimately get advanced? Like, was there a specific conversation you had that you remember, or is it something you reached out to? What's that story?
That's a great question, Alex, because I think I learned very early on that if you want something, you have to go for it. If you're waiting for something
it's
to
not just going to be given to you.
Yeah, if you're waiting for somebody to recognize you, it could
Right.
never happen potentially, right? But you have to get out in front of it. So I knew days in advance when, say, like, the area sales manager was going to be coming to visit, or the corporate office would be coming to visit my store, and I would prepare. And what I mean by prepare is like anything that special, or things that I had accomplished for our makeup counter, I would recap it like into, I would put it together in a document, like what I had done, or put together some ideas. And
this was not necessarily required corporate wise. This was just something you did on your own.
Oh yeah, totally, just on my own. And then I would make sure that I coordinated things for when the corporate office came in. Like I would book a lunch for them, or, make a special spot for them to have a meeting place within the department store, make sure that everybody knew they were coming. So whether it was my job or not, I made sure that they were completely taken care of when they arrived, and showing them how we set up our counter and everything. And at a young age, my father told me, if there's a job that you want, act like you already have it, and then you will achieve that, right? Like, don't wait for somebody to give it to you before you start taking on those responsibilities. So I really made sure that every time they came in, I had something to show them. Here's our numbers. Here's our stats. Here's what I'm personally responsible for. Here's how we're setting ourselves apart. So I made sure that there was no way they could forget me. And then I would put, all my contact information on that sheet. So when it came time, and put any cause possible for me to reach out to them and connect with them, even after they had left the store, I would make sure that I took that opportunity. So I really made sure I, pushed as hard as I could to get in front of them at every direction.
No, and that's how you got to do it. And then so at some point, something must have opened up, right? Do you remember what was the first job after working at the counter? What was that?
Yeah. So one of the account executives, which was at that time my dream position, right, where you oversaw the whole state, right? Eventually, I had the whole country, but I wanted one state at that time, right? And I remember, she would come in and she said that she was going on maternity leave, and did I know of anybody in the industry that would be able to cover her position? And I was like, yes, me. And she was like, oh, but you're pretty new. And I was like, well, here's the reasons I can do it. Please, can we talk it out? And so I was a little relentless. And so she let me cover for her during her maternity leave. And meanwhile, when she got back from maternity leave, she got promoted, and then I went into her slot, right? So then I became the account executive. And this story, I actually just told this to one of our new hires last week because they were asking me, how I grew in my career. We wound up going to a national sales meeting for Christian Dior. And this took place in Mexico. And Dior was at our national sales meeting was like 1,300 people, right? So it's hard to get noticed. But I made sure to ask when I got there, like, who is this? Who is that? Like, while the other people were drinking and partying and dancing, I was making notes of who everybody was and who I needed to make sure to stand next to and sit next to. So I found out who the VP of sales is, the guy who oversaw the whole country. And so I knew he was like my target, right? So I watched him, and I had these forms that I had created to be successful in my position. So I saw him at one point sit down at this table in the room, and it was a big round table. So I hightailed it across the room and sat right next to him and just acted like I was working away because he was working away. And I spread out all my little forms, and he looked over and he was like, hello. And so, he introduced himself and we chatted, and he said, what are you working on? And I said, oh, these are some forms I made, to optimize the sales in my state.
And this was all kind of planned out in your head. You were hoping he would see it and you'd get into a conversation.
Exactly. Yeah. So, but you make your own, opportunities in this life. So I got him to look at the forms, and he said, do you mind if I take these with me? And I was like, of course, take them. So next thing I knew, and remember, this is before like cell phones were really like a big deal, right? So I knew that night, the phone was ringing in my hotel room, and it was his assistant asking, could I present those forms and what they do for my territory, because this guy liked them, and could I present them at the NSM? And I said, sure, in like a little breakout session. And she was like, no, to the whole company. And then I had
Oh
like a
boy.
little heart palpitations, over.
Yeah.
And this is when we had like the overhead projector,
Yes.
Yeah. So I had to stand up in front of 1,300 people and talk about these forms. But it was definitely my fast track to where I
Yeah.
wanted to go. And then I climbed the ladder pretty quickly.
That's awesome.
I'm Kathy Christensen, President and CSO of AmSpa. Don't miss Medical Spa Show 2025, April 10th through the 13th at the beautiful Wynn in Vegas. Use code Medical Spa Insider MSS25, all caps, as a promo code when you register at www.medicalspashow.com. See you there.
Promo code expires on April 10, 2025 at 11:59 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Promo code only applies to the primary registrant. Promo code cannot be applied towards additional attendee registration and cannot be combined with any additional offers. Discount only applicable to new MSS 25 registrants. And then you ended up for Christian Dior. First of all, did you get to meet any celebrities? I mean, that's what we were.
Oh, yes. A lot of them, like Charlize Theron, who was the brand for J'adore. Yes.
Yeah. Well, then we got to get her to the Med Spa show. I think that we got to get her. So all right, you're going to take care of that. Just let me know when she's going to arrive and we'll get her set up. Eventually you moved into the marketing department though, right? For Dior, you started, or were you always kind of an account executive or sales? How'd that work?
Then I went to oversee all of sales and marketing, right?
Okay.
So that was like and then there was like a marketing team that was underneath, right?
All of sales and marketing for Dior.
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yes, for the US though, not there's a global position also.
Sure. So then that seems like that's a pretty big career goal there. And then why'd you want to leave that? I mean, it seems like you got it made at that point.
So I was there for quite some time. That job in beauty and cosmetics, that whole section of my life was 13 years, right?
Yep.
And it was an amazing 13 years. It was also in the height of the economy. We had unbelievable company cars and expense accounts. And, Dior being a division of LVMH, I mean, we had all the Louis Vuitton gear. And I mean, it was an amazing time to be in the industry. It's such a glamorous position. But to be honest, I was in a plane and a hotel room 5 nights a week. And I woke up and I was 40 and I had this amazing career, but I had nothing else. And you know me, I'm super honest and I'm an open book, but I had already had a couple of divorces under my belt because nobody wanted to be married to the lady who never came home. And then when I came home, I was only working. And so I started to think to myself, I can keep going and then wake up at 50 and have even more money in the bank, but then I don't have any of the other things.
What else do you have? Yeah.
And I knew if I pulled back, I didn't know how. I only know how to do something 100%. So I was like, I'd rather just go out on top, kind of like Seinfeld, and just, quit while I was ahead. And it was one of the scariest moves of my life because I really had no idea what I was going to do, but I knew I would be able to find my way. But I walked away with no other job, with no other anything in that moment. I knew companies would want me for consulting work, in the cosmetics industry, but I just really didn't know what I wanted to do next.
So you hadn't hatched the Spark Medical Marketing idea yet. You were just basically saying, I know this is not what I want. This is, for a variety of reasons, like you talked about. So I'm going to go for something else. So you up and quit. Nothing else really lined up. That is a brave move, especially because I'm sure there were folks who were like, what are you doing? Your parents again are probably like, oh my God, here we go again. You're going to go back and now you're going to work at a hot dog stand or something.
Yes. So I was ready just for a change. I wanted to, It was very, odd, but I had saved a lot of money in the bank and, I felt comfortable, but I just needed time to decide what to do next. Oddly, what I did next was I did volunteer and charity work for 1 year. I just I needed to give back and do something different. I helped with many different organizations over that year, everything from a few different pet rescues to some, just other charities that were near and dear to my heart. So I did that for a solid year and then put like my marketing brain behind, helping those charities. And then I started doing consulting. So did some consulting for the cosmetic brands like MAC and Estee Lauder, and did some work for those groups, the Hugo Boss group. I did a lot of consulting. And then I got a call one day for a friend that asked can you help with med spas? And I said, I'm sure I can. And then next thing you knew, I started to be really good at that, and then launched Spark because I had to have a business to do all of this consulting under. And before you knew it, then started working with some of the device companies, which is how we wound up growing Spark. And that was really the story of how it came to be.
That is crazy. So looking back on it, and this is a loaded question. We could probably talk about this for hours, but you've been in kind of beauty with these amazing top shelf brands that people would die to work for. And now you're in medical aesthetics. What's similarities, differences? How do they compare?
Oh, great question. So I would say both are very cutthroat. There's a lot of competition. I would never call this a laid back industry on either side, right? Both are very, competitive, and I love the part about the innovation, like, right. So, Dior was constantly, trying to innovate, new products. And so same on the aesthetic side. I would say the difference, was me going from corporate America, right? Being just kind of, even when you're, at the high level at Dior, when you look at the whole ecosystem of LVMH, I'm still like a little fish, in the pond over there. And then starting my own business and going into medical aesthetics, I was able to really create my own pond, right? And become the bigger fish. So that part has been really appealing to me, is to be able to steer my own ship. And I think, one of the things that I wanted to do a little differently is, even though I guess our company over time, I will say that I started to see some corporate America tactics happening, with my employees at some points. Like I saw some things that I was like, no, let's be more culture centric and make sure everybody's comfortable and happy. Sometimes as you grow, it's hard to keep away some of the, I guess you call like the mean girl tactics or things that go on in corporations. But I would say that one of the things that I think my team would say about me is that I really do care about the people that work for me and with me. I can't get to know every single person, but those that I get to work closely with every day. And if I do hear a story of somebody on my team that is having a problem, even if they're not closely connected to me all day, I make sure that I reach out. And because I think that my experience in corporate America was like that you were more of a number, and I didn't want anybody on my team ever feeling like that. So I really try not to ever do that. I don't know if it has happened to somebody along the way, then that makes me feel bad. But I really do care.
It's not easy. And I mean, and especially that level, I mean, you're talking about a global brand, right? Going from that and then owning your own business. I mean, and owning your own business is not easy either. So it's a totally separate thing where you even, I've never run a corporate division, but being in charge of sales and marketing for Dior in the United States is one thing, but then having your own business, being fully in charge, growing it, all those things that go into it is so different. Do you like did you like being a business owner? Do you continue to like being a business owner? Was it something that you were kind of always wanting to do, or did you just fall into it?
So I definitely never thought about being an entrepreneur. It wasn't like something that, I dreamed about my whole life. My father owned several companies, so I got to watch him do it, and I thought it was great. And he pretty much empowered me to believe that I could do anything I wanted to. So that was great growing up. Being an entrepreneur, very interesting experience. I'm sure you can attest to. It's a lesson every day of your life. And I remember the time in going from, like just 5 employees to, like 80 employees at one point, like that growth spurt there where you literally are learning a lesson every single day you wake up. And I remember, some days were harder than others. And, you open your eyes and the first thing you think is, please don't let anything crazy happen today, and there were so many things in that growth spurt, but I learned so much, and it was very, very exhilarating. And for me, actually, I love the growth spurt and I love the growth stage, which is why I love working with other businesses now, because kind of the coasting phase, once it's built and established, becomes a little bit complacent to me. I realized I studied a little bit, in my higher education about that there's 2 different kinds of entrepreneurs. One that really loves the growth and one that loves the maintaining of a company and just like keep it going. And I'm definitely the grower, right? I love to do something new, come up with those ideas and capitalize them and grow on them. So that's really what gets me excited in the morning.
Yeah, it's true. Because there's 2 totally separate parts to a business. The growth part is, and businesses go through different stages themselves. So AmSpa has grown, and we've also stabilized and plateaued. I think now we would like to continue to grow again. I think that next level is what we're looking for. I'm curious, what kind of looking back on it, you've had such an amazing career already with what you did in beauty, Spark Medical Marketing, which you mentioned had 80. How many employees did it have at its how many does it have now?
Well, with the merger and the deal that we had, there's 175 total.
Okay, wow. That's a huge company in and of itself. Now you've kind of moved on to that. I mean, what's from that? What do you having accomplished that much and worked as hard as you have and done what you have? How do you relax? How do you take time off? And or is it, maybe you're just not ready for that. So it's on to the next thing. What does that look like?
That's a great question. So Alex, I am not a person who's very good at relaxing. I'm not encouraging others to follow that, but it has led to success, but I'm not really good at relaxing. But I've been like this since I'm a little kid. So maybe it's just in my natural setting. They would send us home with 5 books we had to read over the summer, and I'd read 50, right? Because I just wanted more. So I think that, relaxing to me, what I'm doing now, people are like, how are you doing all those things? This is relaxing to me, right? Because I'm not running the operations of a day-to-day company every day. So one big company, but this is doing things that I enjoy all day. When I think about what comes next, I think, figuring out, how to best contribute to these brands that I work with, as well as, I have a new project on the horizon in the cybersecurity realm, for med spas, right? Because I think, I'm still very passionate about helping the industry. So that's something new on the horizon. But I think just, continuing to thrive. I'm not ready to slow down yet. I'm a person who, luckily, I only need about 3 to 4 hours of sleep a night. I think that has definitely allowed me to succeed in a way that I wouldn't have if I needed more hours of sleep, because I would be behind all the time on the things that I want to accomplish. But that one factor alone allows me to get maybe 4 or 5 hours more out of the day than most people do. And that's really a cool thing for me.
Yeah, well, that's of course assuming that you work on those things during that time when you're not sleeping, which is amazing that you do. And that, again, that's you've mentioned that to me before. Many times I wish I could have that. So, I don't want to spend too much time. We're going to have a lot of time for future podcasts and for things for folks to get to know you. Looking at AmSpa, I met you I think we're on a panel or something. I can't remember exactly what it was. Immediately I was impressed with the amount of data you had and just your kind of overall knowledge and perspective on the industry. And so I thought it was natural to start talking about AmSpa. What is it? What do you see with the industry and with AmSpa that we can really move the needle on in the future? Because that's always, we want to make a difference. We want to do it for the right reasons. Obviously, we need to be always attached to safety, good outcomes, having a really, really growing and incredible industry. Being profitable obviously is part of that, but it's certainly not the only thing, and it's maybe not the most important thing. What do you see when you look at AmSpa and the industry, what we can do kind of to make a difference?
Sure, absolutely. Excited to answer that question. So, the first appeal to me was, well, at my disposal, we have access to thousands and thousands of med spas that have worked with us over the years, are currently on our platform, and or were on at one point. And I think everybody needs to be a part of AmSpa for so many reasons, right? I mean, the greater good of the entire industry. And I'm on several different groups and boards and things that have to do with med spas. And I see people really just struggling. And I hear our own customers struggling with questions about compliance and how should I be doing this better? What do we think is going to happen to body contouring? Whatever it is, just all these various questions and ambiguity that goes on, and fears and excitement. And my goal, I think, is to be this voice of reason in the industry and expertise in the industry, where we can help these clinics be the best they can and predict ahead of time based on our data. And I do have access to so much data now, but what is happening and how can we get ahead of this? And, there was a question where we were like, are GLP-1s really here to stay? Well, yeah, they are. And it's no kidding, right? So making sure that, our offices are set up for success with that, as well as every other thing that's going to come along during the course of their business, and then just setting them up for, what we're working on with your injector training and keeping everybody with the highest level of training possible, and not just hitting those minimum standards, making sure that, the patients that come in are getting the best care possible, and that the med spas are having an ease of knowing how to stay in compliance. All of this I'm super passionate about, and as well as growing the industry, bringing them together for, your AmSpa show, which is coming up in April, getting everybody together, making more of a community feeling for everyone, that they feel like, they have some support groups to rely on and turn to one another. So that's something I'm really passionate about, and becoming sort of the voice of the industry, where they can turn to us for, expertise and advice.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's what we're trying to do. And that sense of community is so important, and it does exist already in medical spas and medical aesthetics, but it's very fragmented. You've got folks who are part of AmSpa, and then you've got these other groups, and we need to all get together, and we need to be together soon, because there are some things that are happening in the industry that we need to make sure that we have a voice in. But yeah, I'm really excited. I'm glad to have you. I appreciate you joining us today, and I look forward to what there is to come. And we'll have to do more podcasts and more events. We'll get people to come in, and we can talk to them as well. So I really look forward to it. And thank you again for everything. And I'll leave you with the last word.
Great. Well, thank you so much for inviting me today. And this is just the beginning of what we have planned for the industry, and very excited to work together to elevate everything we can for the industry, and really participate in what's coming next. Excited.
All right. Randi Boyette, appreciate your time. Thank you very much. You'll be hearing more from her soon. And thank you for listening.
Thank you to producers Madeline Mahler, marketing content coordinator, who organizes, schedules, and handles our guests, provides topics, talking points, and guest bios to our hosts. And myself, Joe DeGuzman, technology operations assistant manager. I handle the audio and video editing, voiceovers, and tech. Kate Harper, digital marketing coordinator, who makes all of our graphics and manages the podcast platform. Esme Uriostegui, Senior Social Media Coordinator, who makes and posts all the clips of the podcast to our social feeds. Our music is by Ghost Score. Thank you for listening to or watching the Medical Spa Insider podcast. Please follow or subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for future episodes. For more information about the American Med Spa Association, please check our show notes or in the description below.